The morning light filtered through my apartment window as I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. 25 years old, blonde hair pulled back in what I hoped looked professional, wearing the one good dress I owned. Today was supposed to be different. Today was supposed to matter. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Mom. "Sorry, honey, your dad's back is acting up again. We won't make it to the ceremony." "Congrats, though." I set the phone down slowly, my hands trembling slightly. 2 years of graduate school, working 3 part-time jobs to pay for it, studying until my eyes burned, and they couldn't even pretend to care for 3 hours. The auditorium at Portland State University was already filling up when I arrived. Families clustered around graduates, taking photos, laughing, crying, happy tears. I found my seat in the sea of black caps and gowns, the empty chairs in the audience section seeming to mock me. "Hey, you okay?" Sarah, my study partner, leaned over. Her parents had flown in from New York, and her little brother was somewhere in the crowd with a homemade sign. "Yeah, just nervous," I lied, forcing a smile. The ceremony began with the usual pomp and circumstance. Dean Martinez gave his speech about the future leaders of America, about how we were the change the world needed. I tried to focus on his words, but my eyes kept drifting to the empty seats where my family should have been. When they called the School of Social Work, my heart started racing. I'd worked so hard for this moment, spent countless nights at the downtown community center, volunteering with homeless outreach programs, organizing food drives, anything to make a difference. It was what drove me to get my master's in social work in the first place. "Nicole Patterson," the dean announced. I stood on shaky legs and walked across the stage. The photographer snapped a photo of me shaking hands with Dean Martinez, my smile genuine despite everything. This was my moment, even if I was celebrating alone. As I walked back to my seat, I noticed a man in a dark suit near the side of the stage, watching me with interest. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. He was speaking quietly to someone with a clipboard, pointing in my direction. The ceremony continued, but something had shifted. I felt like I was being watched, and not just by the random stranger. Several people in the audience seemed to be looking at me, whispering among themselves. After the ceremony ended, I gathered my things slowly. Everyone around me was rushing to meet their families, but I had nowhere urgent to be. My plan was to grab a coffee and maybe treat myself to dinner at that little Italian place downtown. "Excuse me, Miss Patterson." I turned to find the man in the suit standing behind me. Up close, I recognized him. He was often in the local news. My stomach dropped. Had I done something wrong? Was this about my student loans? "I'm sorry, but I think you might have me confused with someone else," I said, clutching my cap and gown tighter. He smiled warmly. "No confusion. I've been hoping to meet you for quite some time. I'm James Wheeler, Mayor Wheeler. Could we talk for a moment?" My mouth fell open. The mayor? Of Portland? What could he possibly want with me? Yes, of course. But I'm not sure why you'd want to. "Trust me," he said, his eyes twinkling. "I think you'll be surprised." Mayor Wheeler led me to a quiet corner of the auditorium, away from the celebrating families and graduates. My mind was racing. Had I messed up some paperwork? Was this about my volunteer work? I'd always been careful to follow every rule and regulation. "Ms. Patterson, please don't look so worried," he said with a gentle laugh. "You're not in any trouble. Quite the opposite, actually. I'm sorry, I just don't understand why you'd want to talk to me. I'm nobody special." His expression grew serious. "That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you. You think you're nobody special, but you couldn't be more wrong." He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was me at the downtown community center, ladling soup into bowls for the homeless. I remembered that day. It had been raining, and we'd had twice as many people show up as usual. "How did you?" "I make it my business to know what's happening in my city," he said, "especially when someone is making a real difference. Do you know how many volunteer hours you've logged in the past 2 years?" I shook my head. I'd never kept track. It wasn't about the hours. 437, he said. 437 hours of your free time, while working multiple jobs and completing graduate school. You organized 3 food drives that fed over 200 families each. You started a job training program for homeless individuals that has a 78% success rate for permanent placement. My cheeks burned. I just did what needed to be done. Anyone would have. No, he interrupted firmly. Anyone wouldn't have. Most people talk about making a difference. You actually did it. I felt tears prick my eyes. This was more recognition than I'd ever received from my own family. But that's not why I'm here, he continued. I'm here because of what happened last month. Do you remember the night of the big storm? Of course I remembered. It had been one of the worst storms Portland had seen in years. The power had gone out across half the city, and the temperature had dropped below freezing. I'd been at home, studying for finals, when I'd gotten a call from Maria, who ran the night shift at the community center. She called me, I said slowly, said the backup generator had failed, and they had nowhere to move the people who were staying there for the night. It was too dangerous for them to be on the streets. And what did you do? I spent my grocery money on portable heaters and drove around to 3 different stores to buy them. Then I stayed at the center all night to make sure everyone was safe and warm. I paused, remembering how exhausted I'd been the next day. But how could you possibly know about that? Mayor Wheeler smiled. Because Maria Rodriguez is my sister-in-law. She called me the next morning, crying, telling me about this young woman who'd given up everything to make sure no one froze to death that night. She said you refused to take any credit, wouldn't even let her put your name on the incident report. I stared at him in shock. Maria had never mentioned being related to the mayor. That's when I started paying attention to you, Ms. Patterson. Really paying attention. And what I found was someone who embodies everything I wish I saw more of in this world. Selfless service, quiet leadership, and genuine compassion. My voice came out as barely a whisper. Why are you telling me this? He glanced around the nearly empty auditorium, then back at me. Because I have a proposition for you. But first, I want to know, where is your family? This is your graduation day. Where are the people who should be celebrating you? The question hit like a punch to the gut. I looked down at my hands, twisted around my cap. They had other things to do, I said quietly. My parents don't really understand what I do. They think social work is just... They think I'm wasting my education on people who can't be helped. And your siblings? Friends? My sister's in California. She's a lawyer, very successful. My brother's in medical school. They're both doing important things with their lives. I looked up at him. I'm the disappointment of the family. Mayor Wheeler was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that would change everything. What if I told you that your family not being here today was going to turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to you? I don't understand, I said, still trying to process everything Mayor Wheeler had told me. The auditorium was nearly empty now, with only a few stragglers and cleanup crew members remaining. Walk with me, he said, gesturing toward the exit. I want to show you something. We walked outside into the crisp Portland afternoon. The campus was buzzing with graduation celebrations, families taking photos by the fountain, graduates tossing their caps in the air, the whole scene filled with joy and pride. I tried not to feel bitter about it. Mayor Wheeler led me to a black sedan parked at the curb. Would you mind taking a ride with me? I promise it's nothing sinister. I just want to show you something that might help you understand why this day is so important. Against my better judgment, I got in the car. We drove through downtown Portland, past the community center where I'd spent so many hours, past the coffee shop where I'd written most of my thesis, past all the familiar landmarks of my small world. Ms. Patterson, can I call you Nick? Sure. Nick, what do you want to do with your life? Not what your family expects, not what you think you should do, but what you actually want. I thought about it as we drove past the Willamette River. I want to help people. I know that sounds naive, but I want to create programs that actually work. I want to help people get back on their feet, not just temporarily, but for good. I want to change systems, not just put band-aids on problems. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. He turned onto a street I didn't recognize, heading toward a part of town I rarely visited, because I'm about to offer you the chance to do exactly that. We pulled up in front of a large, modern building. The sign read, Portland Department of Human Services, Community Outreach Division. This is our newest facility, Mayor Wheeler explained as we got out of the car. We're launching a completely new approach to social services in this city. Instead of having people navigate a dozen different agencies, we're creating one central hub where they can get comprehensive help. He led me inside. The building was beautiful, open, welcoming, with natural light streaming in through large windows. It didn't feel like a government building at all. We're looking for someone to head up our new community integration program, he continued as we walked through the empty hallways. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle, who's proven they can get results, and who has the education and experience to build something from the ground up. I stopped walking. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a career. The position comes with a significant salary increase from whatever you're making now, full benefits, and the budget to hire a team of 6 people. You'd be responsible for creating and implementing programs that could serve as a model for other cities across the country. My head was spinning. But I just graduated. I don't have any management experience. There must be people with more qualifications. Nick, listen to me. He stopped and faced me directly. I've been in politics for 20 years. I've seen hundreds of resumes, interviewed countless candidates, and worked with people who had all the right credentials on paper. But credentials don't tell you who's going to show up at midnight in a storm to make sure people don't freeze to death. I still don't understand why you're doing this. Mayor Wheeler smiled. Because sometimes the best way to honor someone is to give them the opportunity to do more of what they're already doing brilliantly. Your family may not see your worth, but I do. This city does. We continued the tour, and he showed me office space that could be mine, conference rooms where I could meet with community leaders, and a whole floor dedicated to the programs I'd be developing. It was everything I'd dreamed of but never thought I could have. There's one more thing, he said as we headed back to the car. The position comes with a public introduction. I want the whole city to know who you are and what you've accomplished. I want to make sure everyone understands that this isn't just another government appointment. This is us recognizing and promoting someone who's already proven they can make a difference. What do you mean by public introduction? He checked his watch. Well, that depends. Are you free this evening? There's a city council meeting at 7, and I was hoping you might be willing to let me introduce you to the community. Nothing too formal, just a chance for people to meet their new community integration director. I felt like I was in a dream. This morning I'd been a disappointment to my family, sitting alone at my graduation. Now I was being offered a dream job and public recognition. Yes, I'd be honored. Excellent. He opened the car door for me. But first, let's get you back to collect your things. And Nick, you might want to call your family. I have a feeling they're going to want to hear about this. As we drove back toward the university, I stared out the window at the city that was about to become my professional home in a whole new way. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone truly saw me for who I was and what I could become. But I had no idea that the evening's events would change everything even more dramatically than I could have imagined. Back at the university, I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at my phone. Mayor Wheeler had given me an hour to get ready for the city council meeting, but first I needed to make the call I'd been dreading. I scrolled through my contacts and found Mom. My finger hovered over the call button. Part of me wanted to wait, to not tell them anything until after the meeting. But another part of me, the part that still desperately wanted their approval, needed to share this moment. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. Hey, honey, how did the ceremony go? It went well, Mom. Listen, I need to tell you something important. Oh, hold on. Your father wants to say hi. Bob, pick up the extension. I heard the familiar click of the second phone being picked up. There's our college graduate. Dad's voice boomed through the speaker. So what's next? You going to look for a real job now? The comment stung, but I pushed through. Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I got a job offer today, a really good one. Oh, that's nice, sweetheart, Mom said, though I could hear the TV in the background. Where at? One of those community centers you're always volunteering at? No, Mom. The mayor of Portland offered me a position as Director of Community Integration for the city's Department of Human Services. There was silence on the line. The mayor? Dad's voice had changed. As in, the actual mayor? Yes, Dad. He's been following my work for months. He offered me the position personally today, right after graduation. Hold on, Mom said. How much does something like that pay? I told them the salary figure Mayor Wheeler had mentioned. Another long silence. That's more than I make, Dad said quietly. He was a manager at a manufacturing plant, had been for 15 years. And you said the mayor offered this to you personally? Mom asked. Yes. He's known about my volunteer work, and he wants me to head up a new program. I'm going to be introduced at the city council meeting tonight. The city council meeting that's on TV? Mom's voice was getting higher. Yes. Oh my God, Bob, our daughter is going to be on television. I could hear them talking to each other, their voices excited and animated in a way I'd never heard when they talked about my work before. Honey, we're so proud of you, Mom said, coming back to the phone. I had no idea you were doing such important work. I've been telling you about it for 2 years, Mom. I know, but, well, you know how we worry about you working with those people. We didn't realize it was leading to something like this. Those people. I closed my eyes, trying not to let the comment derail this moment. I need to go get ready for the meeting, I said. But I wanted you to know. Of course, we'll be watching tonight. Bob, set the DVR. Wait, Dad said. Nick, I'm sorry we missed your graduation today. If we'd known... It's okay, Dad. No, it's not. We should have been there. We should have been there for all of it. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I have to go. We love you, honey, Mom said, and we're so proud of you. After I hung up, I sat in my car for a few minutes trying to process what had just happened. In the span of 5 minutes, I'd gone from being the family disappointment to the family success story. It should have felt good, but instead, it felt hollow. They were proud of me now, because I had a title and a salary. But what about all the work I'd been doing? What about the lives I'd been helping to change? Did any of that matter if it didn't come with recognition and money? My phone buzzed with a text from my sister in California. Mom just called, holy shit. The mayor? I'm so proud of you. Can't wait to watch tonight. Then one from my brother. Dude, you're going to be on TV. Mom's already posted about it on Facebook. You're famous. I started the car and drove home to my tiny apartment. I had exactly 45 minutes to figure out what to wear to the most important meeting of my life. As I stood in front of my closet, looking at my limited options, I thought about Mayor Wheeler's words. Sometimes the best way to honor someone is to give them the opportunity to do more of what they're already doing brilliantly. Maybe that was the difference. He wasn't honoring me because I'd achieved something that looked impressive on paper. He was honoring me because I'd been doing the work, quietly and consistently, even when no one was watching. Even when my own family wasn't watching. I chose a simple black blazer and dress pants. Professional, but not trying too hard. As I got ready, I kept thinking about the people I'd worked with at the community center. Mrs. Johnson, who'd gotten her first apartment in 10 years after completing our job training program. Miguel, who'd been living on the streets for 5 years before we helped him get into treatment and find stable housing. Sarah, the teenage mother who'd finished her GED through our education program. They were the reason I did this work. They were the reason I'd kept going even when my family didn't understand. Tonight, I'd be representing them. Tonight, I'd have the chance to tell their stories and explain why this work mattered. I checked my appearance one last time in the mirror. I looked professional, competent, ready. But I had no idea what Mayor Wheeler had planned for the evening, or how dramatically it would change not just my career, but my entire relationship with my family and myself. The Portland City Council chambers were packed. I'd never seen so many people in one room, and certainly never imagined I'd be sitting at the front waiting to be introduced. Mayor Wheeler had positioned me at a small table near the podium, and I could feel hundreds of eyes on me. "You nervous?" he asked quietly as the meeting was called to order. "Terrified," I admitted. "Good. That means you care." He squeezed my shoulder. "Trust me, you're going to do great." The first part of the meeting covered routine city business, budget approvals, permits, the usual mundane stuff that made up local government. I tried to pay attention, but my mind kept wandering to what I was going to say when it was my turn to speak. "And now," Mayor Wheeler said, standing up, "I'd like to introduce someone very special to our community. But first, let me tell you a story." The room fell quiet. I felt my heart start to race. 2 years ago, a young woman started volunteering at our downtown community center. She was working 3 jobs to pay for graduate school, but somehow she found time to serve meals, organize programs, and help some of our most vulnerable residents get back on their feet. He started walking around the podium, addressing the crowd directly. She didn't do it for recognition. She didn't do it for credit. She did it because she saw people who needed help and she couldn't walk away. Over the past 2 years, her volunteer work has directly impacted over 500 individuals and families in our city. I could see people in the audience looking at me with interest now. Some were smiling, others looked curious. Last month, during the worst storm we've had in years, when our community center's backup generator failed and dozens of homeless individuals had nowhere safe to stay, this young woman spent her grocery money on portable heaters and stayed up all night to make sure no one froze to death. A murmur went through the crowd. I noticed several people in the front row. They looked familiar. With a start, I realized they were people from the community center. Mrs. Johnson was there, and Miguel and Sarah with her baby. She graduated today from Portland State University with a master's degree in social work. She should have been celebrating with her family, but instead she was sitting alone in that auditorium, thinking no one had noticed her work. My cheeks burned. I hadn't expected him to mention that detail. But people did notice. I noticed. This community noticed. And tonight, I want to formally introduce you to Nicole Patterson, who I've asked to become our new Director of Community Integration. The applause started, but Mayor Wheeler wasn't finished. "Nick, would you come up here, please?" I stood on shaky legs and walked to the podium. The applause grew louder. "Nick, I want you to see something," Mayor Wheeler said, gesturing to the audience. "Look at row 3. I looked where he was pointing. Mrs. Johnson was there, beaming at me, holding a sign that read, "Thank you, Nick." Next to her was Miguel, who'd driven for the first time in 15 years to be here tonight. Sarah was bouncing her baby on her lap, both of them smiling. "Row 5, Mayor Wheeler continued. I looked over and saw at least a dozen people I recognized from various volunteer events, people whose lives had been touched by the programs I'd helped organize. "And row 8. I looked toward the back of the room and nearly gasped. There were people there I'd never seen before, but they were holding signs too. "Thank you for your service. Heroes walk among us. Portland is lucky to have you." "Nick," Mayor Wheeler said softly, "your family may not have been at your graduation today, but your real family is here tonight." The applause was deafening now. People were standing up, clapping, some wiping away tears. I felt overwhelmed, like I might collapse from the emotion of it all. "Would you like to say a few words?" Mayor Wheeler asked. I stepped up to the microphone, my hands shaking. I looked out at the sea of faces, at all these people who'd come to support me, and I felt something I'd never experienced before. Unconditional love and acceptance. I don't know what to say, I began, my voice cracking slightly. I never expected anything like this. I just did what felt right, what needed to be done. That's exactly why you're perfect for this job, someone called out from the audience, and everyone laughed. I want to thank Mayor Wheeler for this incredible opportunity, I continued, finding my voice. But more than that, I want to thank all of you for teaching me what real community looks like. You've shown me that family isn't just about blood relations. It's about showing up for each other, especially when times are tough. I looked directly at Mrs. Johnson, who was crying now. You've all made me a better person, and I promise that in this new role, I'll work every day to make sure that everyone in this city feels the same sense of belonging and support that you've given me. The standing ovation that followed seemed to go on forever. People were cheering, crying, hugging each other. It was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. As the applause finally died down, Mayor Wheeler took the microphone again. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Portland's new Director of Community Integration, Nicole Patterson. Another round of applause, and then people started coming up to me. Mrs. Johnson hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Miguel shook my hand and said, "You saved my life, you know that?" Sarah handed me a handwritten card from her daughter. But as I stood there, surrounded by all these people who truly cared about me, I couldn't help but think about my family, sitting at home, watching this on television. Were they proud of me now? Did they finally understand what I'd been trying to do all these years? As the evening wound down, I had no idea that my phone had been buzzing constantly with calls and texts from family members who'd watched the broadcast. The recognition I'd been craving from them was finally coming, but it would arrive in a way I never could have expected. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing incessantly. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and my voicemail was full. I sat up in bed, still trying to process everything that had happened the night before. The first text was from my sister. "Nick, I'm crying. I can't believe I didn't know how amazing you are. I'm so sorry." Then my brother, "Dude, you're all over social media. Someone posted the video from last night and it's going viral. You're like actually famous." My mom, "Honey, please call us. We need to talk. We're so proud of you. We love you so much." But there were dozens of others too. Friends from college I hadn't talked to in years, high school classmates, even people I didn't recognize who'd somehow gotten my number. The video of my speech and Mayor Wheeler's introduction had apparently been shared thousands of times overnight. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through the messages. There were interview requests from local news stations, congratulations from city council members, and even a message from the governor's office. But the message that made me cry was from Maria, the woman who ran the community center. "Mija, I watched last night with my whole family. My kids kept asking me, 'Mama, do you really know her?' I told them, 'Yes, I know her, and she's going to change the world. I'm so proud to call you my friend.'" I was still in my pajamas when someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw my parents standing there, looking nervous and holding flowers. I opened the door slowly. "Hi, honey," Mom said, her eyes red-rimmed. "We drove up this morning. We needed to see you. We needed to apologize," Dad added quietly. I let them in, and we sat in my tiny living room, the silence stretching between us. "We watched last night," Mom finally said. "The whole thing. And we realized how much we've missed, how much we've failed you." "You didn't fail me," I said automatically. "Yes, we did." Dad's voice was firm. "We should have been there yesterday. We should have been there for all of it. Instead, we were too busy worrying about what the neighbors would think, too busy comparing you to your siblings, too busy being disappointed that you weren't doing something we understood." "But Nick," Mom said, leaning forward, "seeing you up there last night, seeing all those people who love you, seeing what you've accomplished, we realize that we're the ones who've been missing out." She pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot of a Facebook post she'd made earlier that morning. It was the video of my speech, with a caption that read, "This is my daughter Nicole. She's been changing lives for years, but I was too blind to see it. I'm the proudest mom in the world tonight, and I'm sorry it took me so long to tell her." "It has over 200 comments," she said softly, "all from people telling us how lucky we are to have you as a daughter." I felt tears starting to fall. "I just wanted you to be proud of me." "We are," Dad said, his own voice breaking. "We're so proud we can barely stand it. But more than that, we're ashamed. Ashamed that it took seeing you on television to make us realize what we should have known all along." "What's that?" I asked. "That you're exactly who you're supposed to be," Mom said. "That you've always been exactly who you're supposed to be. We just couldn't see it because we were too busy trying to make you into someone else." We talked for hours. They asked me about my work, really asked, listening to my answers instead of just waiting for their turn to speak. They asked about Mrs. Johnson and Miguel and Sarah, about the programs I'd helped create, about my plans for the new job. For the first time in my life, I felt like they were seeing me, the real me, not the version of me they'd wanted me to be. "There's something else," Dad said as they were getting ready to leave. "We want to make up for missing your graduation. We want to throw you a party, a real celebration, with all your friends from the community center, your coworkers, everyone who matters to you. You don't have to do that." "Yes, we do," Mom said firmly. "We missed celebrating you yesterday, but we're not going to miss another chance." 2 weeks later, my parents rented out a community room at the local church and threw me the graduation party I'd never expected to have. Mrs. Johnson came, and Miguel and Sarah with her baby. Maria brought her whole family. Mayor Wheeler showed up with his wife and kids. My sister flew in from California, and my brother drove down from Seattle. As I stood in that room, surrounded by the people who'd become my chosen family and the family I'd been born into, I realized that sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in disappointment. If my family had shown up to my graduation, if they'd been supportive all along, I might never have discovered my own strength. I might never have learned that love and recognition from the people whose opinions truly matter is worth more than approval from those who don't really see you. Mayor Wheeler found me near the end of the party, as people were starting to say their goodbyes. "Any regrets?" he asked. I looked around the room at all the faces. Some familiar, some new, all dear to me now. "None," I said. "Not a single one." "Good," he said, smiling. "Because tomorrow, the real work begins." He was right. The next morning, I started my new job, and it was everything I'd hoped for and more. I built programs that actually worked, helped people in ways that mattered, and found myself at the center of a community that valued service over status. But more than that, I'd learned something invaluable. Sometimes the people who are meant to celebrate you are the ones you find along the way, not the ones you started with. Sometimes your real family is the one you build through love and service, and showing up for each other day after day. And sometimes, the best thing that can happen to you is for everyone to fail to show up for you, because it forces you to discover that you're stronger than you ever imagined, and that there are people out there who will not only show up for you, but who will celebrate you in ways you never dreamed possible. My name is Nick. I'm 25 years old, and I learned that disappointment can be the doorway to the life you were always meant to live.